He's returned. Lewis has come back to us. He's back.
Hello. Hey, Dan. Sorry,
Lewis.
I wasn't here last week.
That's okay. Do you know who was mostly concerned about that?
Who's that?
My mother. She sent me a text. She sent me a text. The question was, is Lewis still doing the podcast?
Oh, sorry. I only missed one in like 10 years. Sorry. Yeah, I'll be totally honest. I just forgot. Like
Then that's fine.
That's all it was. It was nothing more significant than that. I was in Melbourne. I was visiting my family. I was doing some live shows there, and I just slipped my mind.
100%. It happens to me all the time. At about 3 p.m. on a Thursday, I wish I could forget this podcast has to be recorded.
I think also because I have just changed. Like I've just left my other job. My job.
You're out of the rhythm. You're out of the rhythm. Now you're unemployed.
I don't know what day it is.
Hitting Centrelink lines. I understand. Yeah, I get it.
Sorry, I'm very confused.
We've got a few things to mention at the top of the show before we get stuck into it. First of all, we've got the People's Choice Awards for the Australian Podcast Festival. That link is out now. It's in our show notes. So please, if you are people and you like to choose Irrational Fear as your favorite podcast, please hit that link and select us. That would be marvelous. We've got a few less listeners than many of the more listened to podcasts out there. Like Shameless. I think they've got like 1 million downloads a week.
Is that
we're
right?
Tracking 10,000. We're up there.
Do they get 1 million a week?
I think a month. I think their unique are 1 million a month. Yeah.
Wow, good for them.
Yeah, good for them. And Women in Media Conference is coming up September 9. We'll be performing there. But also the one that you should all try to get to is our Tip Top Tour. We are going to the Torres Strait to perform Irrational Fear at Thursday Island Bowls Club on the 18th of September. So do come along to that. Are you excited about that, Lewis?
I'm so excited. It's so I've never been there. I've never been, that far north.
You know who hasn't been there in 5 years?
Who?
Their local member, Warren Tench, hasn't been there. We're going to go there because, quite frankly, those people need a voice. Someone's got to do it.
Wow.
It's got to be us.
I'm pumped. I can't wait. I am so excited about that show.
I'm recording my end of Irrational Fear on Gundungurra land, on the land of the Gundungurra and Tharawal people. This October, let's try listening. Vote yes for the voice. All right, here we go.
Right as you said that, Dan, the voice, your yes voice poster behind your head fell down. I'm not trying to say that's an omen. I'm just saying.
I put my yes poster at the front of my house today, so it could go either two ways. I could get positive nods from the neighbours, or I could get egged. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Or I could get potatoed by Peter Dutton fans out there. Tonight, Brisbane Lord Mayor solves the problem of homelessness by getting wealthy people to make unlivable apartments that will never go on the market to be rented by anyone who can almost afford it. That's known as the Sydney method. And Australia Post loses $384 million in an inquiry. They found they lost it because they sent it with Australian Post. And no campaigners are furious that they can't vote with an X or use their iPads. It's the 31st of August, 2023, with more job offers than Mark McGowan. This is Irrational Fear. Hello, welcome to Irrational Fear. I'm your host, former Qantas CEO Dan Ilic, and this is the podcast that takes the news and dips it in gravy. And we've got some gravy connoisseurs tonight. They're a comedian, writer, and practitioner of climate ASMR from Pedestrian and FBI Radio. It's Issy Phillips. Welcome, Issy.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
Now, Issy, how do you do climate ASMR? Is that just like burning houses around you in your ear? Is that how that works?
Yeah, look, it's a whole bunch of things. I mean, I guess that's like the one beauty of the climate crisis is that it reaches literally everything. So you can kind of chew on stuff, tap on stuff, it's all there. It's all climate ASMR.
Everything's climate. And despite me asking my agent many times, they're the only guest that we've had on Irrational Fear that has also been on Help, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which is exactly what they said when they tried to leave Channel 10 newsroom for good. It is Tash Exelby. Welcome, Tash.
Hello, Mr. Ilic. I think that is the finest introduction I've ever had.
Wow. Yeah. And you've been in show business a long time. When I say show business, the news.
That's true. I mean, I've also been sacked twice. I'm chasing the trifecta. So, a nice intro isn't always, it's not the best compliment I can give you.
And he's been gallivanting around the country, remembering the time he used to be a youth broadcaster all those days ago. It's Lewis Hobba.
Hello. Yes, thrilled to be back doing Irrational Fear. Again, apologies to Gwen and all others that I missed it last week. But yeah, really excited to be back.
Gwen's my mum. Yeah, thanks for that. Tash, do you have any advice for someone who's recently been unemployed in the media for Lewis? You know, Lewis had a bit of a departure from the national broadcaster.
Well, firstly, Lewis, I guess my first piece of advice to you would be maybe don't forget to attend a podcast that you've been doing for many years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pop that one in the diary.
Yeah.
But it's not called unemployment. It's called fun employment. And as I've been told, you will never be lucky enough to not work again. I'm not saying that that's not going to be pushing trolleys at Woolworths. Just saying.
And that is a perfectly fine career choice for those who like to do that. Yeah. Coming up later, we'll ask, when's the voice? We'll try and understand it. But first, here is a message from this week's sponsor.
The price of food, petrol, all up. Savings, bank balance, all down. At Woolworths, we get what families go through because we put them through it. The cost of living is sky high, just like our record profits. You can thank us later. That's also why we're keeping an eye on you, with an industrial surveillance complex to catch you trying to feed your family at the expense of our shareholders. After all, it's how we get our Woolies worth, like record levels of Woolies worth. Wow, a dividend. We're Woolworths, the fascist people.
Maybe a bit too much on that one. This week's first beer.
I was with you until the fascists. I'm like, I don't think I'm living under the oppressive Woolworths thumb.
Well, I mean, did you live through the Ujis or the Muji? What were they called? The Ushis, the Great Ushi dictatorship. We all lived under it. It was terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah, look, until we have to visit the embalmed body of the Great Ushi, it's okay.
Here's something, right? When the Ushi craze was big, right? It was like pandemic time and everyone was collecting Ushis. We had some Ushis and I thought I had a rare one and I put it on eBay and I mentioned to my partner that I was doing this. And then I started getting hits on eBay and the person on eBay requested that I take photos of it floating. And then requested I show different positions of the Ushi in water to prove that it was a real Ushi. And it was revealed to me that person was my partner. logging on the eBay. Yeah, so thank you, Kate. Well done.
That's really good.
It's very good. It's very excellent work. Good.
That beats making sourdough.
It does beat making sourdough. This week's first fear. Look, I know we're going to do it. It's divisive. It's been in the media a lot this week, but let's do it. Let's talk worms. A woman from southeast New South Wales went to Canberra Hospital complaining of forgetfulness and headaches, and after an MRI, they discovered a wriggling worm in her brain. The neurosurgeon said it's a once in a career finding, which made this woman feel so good that her brain worms made his career. Dr. Worm. The worm they pulled out was still alive. So it was in Canberra. So they just put it in a box and sent it to the CSIRO. And the scientists there looked at it and went, yep, it's a worm. Apparently, the worm is a common parasite of carpet pythons. It like hangs out in their feces. And this woman may have accidentally eaten carpet python feces. And look, if that's her kink, I don't want to yuck her yum, but that is yuck. Issy Phillips, do you have worms on the brain this week?
Well, I am utterly obsessed with this because all of the symptoms are kind of just like symptoms of burnout. So I'm like, wow, am I burnt out or do I just literally have 8-centimeter parasites crawling around my brain? It's a 50-50 gamble at this point. But I love how it's because they think that she's ingested it through the carpet python pooing on warrigal greens, which she foraged. And it's like, lit the foraging community like a Twitter, like they're all talking about this like shocking discovery, if they should still be foraging. And I just like love this idea of like the foraging community coming together over this kind of like once in a lifetime event of an 8-centimeter worm in a brain.
Yeah,
And
I mean, sure, this woman's brain has been decimated by this worm, but it's done wonders for the foraging community. I didn't know the foraging community existed until this event happened. It's amazing.
I'm not
It's
sure.
pretty incredible.
But
I would have thought after the poisoned mushrooms debacle of like 2 weeks ago, the foraging community was already abuzz.
Well, you know, one part is like, you know, vegetables, the other part is protein. You really got to mix those two together.
I honestly think it's a symptom of a cost of living crisis. People are out there foraging at all costs.
Yeah, it's stealing in a way. It's stealing from Mother Earth. Foraging.
Yeah, Mother Earth needs some AI and some cameras like Woolworths has got
to prevent shoplifting.
What feces is coming in and out of their grasses?
So can I?
Sorry, Tash, you want to say something?
No, it's stealing from the rats and the bandicoots, because apparently, with my research, they are the people who usually ingest these kind of worms. So,
Won't someone think of the bandicoots?
I because I've been reading like silly news aggressively every day for a decade. I am currently.
Oh no, it's been for a decade.
No, for my job. But now I'm off. Like I'm actually having a news like holiday at the moment. I haven't read the news in like 2 weeks, and I have seen this pop up on the social media. I've seen the worm discourse, and I've been so tempted. It's like I've gone cold turkey on wacky news, and someone has come in with the sweet good stuff, and they're like, "This is brainworms. They're in New South Wales. It's a local story," and I'm like, "Oh, maybe just a treat."
Just the side. I need to chow down on my serotonin.
You know, I think who's the happiest about this story, though, because unlike you, Luis, I've been a little bit more, you know, into the news, but that's okay. You're allowed to have a break. That's important. But the same day that this story came out was when our politicians got a 4% pay rise, our federal MPs. And I think they've never been so happy to hear about a worm on the brain in their lives, because that was the story that everyone was talking about.
No one was covering the MP pay rise. Oh my gosh, that's great. We need more worms.
We need. I have been obsessed with this story though. Like, I'm like, how did the worm get into the woman's brain? Like, did she inhale it through her sinuses, the egg that is, or something like that? But from what I've read, it would have gone into the gut, but the worm didn't want to be there, because they're like, this isn't a rat, this isn't a bandicoot, this isn't home. And it's made its way up through several of her organs into her brain.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it actually traveled there live. I don't know like what she felt or what not.
As they go through an organ, do they like leave a plaque like this worm traveled through my lungs in 2023?
Yeah, it's the worm equivalent of climbing Everest. It's like there's something up there, and we will find out what it is. On the way, it's just wiggling past the bodies of several other dead worms from around the world. Just rich worms that have traveled there to see if they could get to the top of the woman mountain.
I feel like this is like her body is like this worm is living the rental crisis in her body, because what's happened is every organ that it's been pushed out of, it's because her immune system is been pushing the worm. So it finally got to her brain where it thought it was safe, and then a surgeon's come in and literally evicted it out of her brain.
Oh my god!
And it's always the surgeons, the landowners.
Exactly.
I own 4 brains.
We really need to get Albo onto this to get more brains for more worms. Built by 2025.
Something like. I was surprised though when the doctor who was operating thought that they were removing a tumor, because that's what they thought that the MRI had displayed, got freaked out. I mean, I understand you don't expect to find a worm in someone's brain, but they were like, ew, this is disgusting. And I'm like, you work in people's brains every day. Like, isn't that a confronting sight enough? But
because a brain just
anyway.
looks like a huddled mass of 1,000 worms.
Worms, yeah.
Indeed.
I just
Something
love the
else.
worm agenda that's being pushed. We're talking about worms. I think worms are awesome. And now there's all of this discourse around the different types of worms. And I just think it's really good for worm visibility as a whole.
So true.
I'm not sure the woman with the 8-centimeter worm in her brain would agree with you, Izzy, but okay, let's run with that.
But like, that's also kind of awesome. She's forever the woman with the worm in her brain. Like, you know, she's at some random function and she'd be like, oh, hi, you know, my name is such and such, and I'm the lady that had the 8-centimeter worm in my brain. And she'll be fawned over. It's kind of awesome.
And everyone's like, you ate python food, filthy woman, go away.
Also, like, I wonder if it will be annoying for her. Like, every time she like forgets her keys or something, they'll go, brainworm. Like, would you lead with it? Like, I guess, would you, like, if you're a single person,
if you're running late,
you're loading up
Sorry,
your dating
Sorry,
profile. Oh, brainworms. Yeah. It's like, I use
sorry, son, I forgot your birthday. I've got brainworm. We know what that's like. Yeah. Well, I think Izzy's right. Izzy, I think you bang on. Let's not forget, next Tuesday is Wear It Wrigley Day, where you need to wear a wriggly bit of clothing to celebrate the life of worms. This week's second fear. It's been a wild fortnight for the Royal Spanish Football Federation, namely their chief, Luis Ruables, who a couple of weeks ago forced a kiss upon a player, Jenny Hermoso, on stage in Sydney at the medal ceremony for the FIFA Women's World Cup. The players were outraged. The world was outraged. They boycotted until he resigned. He refused to resign and then launched legal action against his victim. FIFA stepped in and said, well, we're not going to have any of that, thank you very much, and suspended Rubiales for 90 days. Now, Rubiales' mum has come to his defense and tried to support her son by going on a hunger strike by locking herself in a cathedral. She didn't last too long. She was taken to hospital after she felt anguished and dizzy, symptoms normally associated with being sexually assaulted in front of 1 billion people.
Sorry, I did not mean to laugh at sexual assault, but that was a funny joke, Dan Ilic.
Well, I'm glad it was on the record so I don't get cancelled in 3 days' time. This is the saga that won't end. What is next for Rubiales? How can he possibly make this worse for himself? Lewis, would your mum go on a hunger strike if you sexually assaulted someone in public?
Jesus, God, I hope not. I know
your mum.
I don't want to bring my mum into this. Let's not drag the Hobba family into someone else's mess. It's obviously awful, and the hunger strike element is news to me. I wasn't aware of that. When you say
so bizarre, it's
so
like
dramatic. It's the only part of the story I do. Like, obviously, if we remove the horrific part from it, a mum going full drama and storming into a cathedral. I'm just like, could you be a little more of a Spanish stereotype for just 1 second? Going on a hunger strike in a cathedral because you think it should be okay for your son to kiss women without their permission. I'm just like, delightful.
Praying to the god of Saint Patriarchy. I love it.
Yeah, that's really something. How long did she last?
I think it was only a couple of days. Maybe
90 minutes plus extra time.
I actually think it was less, because she went to hospital and then within like a few hours she was out. Like, I think that also they need to use the church. Like, the priest left the church and then the mother and the sister went in and like did a lock-in. But it's like, doesn't the priest like live in the church or around the church? Like, let him back in.
Yeah. The most Spanish people are hungry all the time because they eat tapas. So, it's always a fast period between. There you go. Just wheeling out that old joke. Fantastic. Well done. Best comedy podcast in Australia, everyone. Best comedy podcast.
Yeah. No, let's definitely vote for you over Shameless.
When was their last?
I feel like this whole situation is like a mother. It's like a parent-teacher interview night. And the mother's like, oh, my son would never do this, despite the fact that we have footage that was broadcast to billions of people. It's just giving like a mum at a parent-teacher interview.
Totally.
Amen to Izzy on that one. And hopefully Louis Rubiales' mum approves of me saying amen on this podcast. I do enjoy just saying Rubiales, though. I must say that. I do enjoy
rolls off
saying
the tongue. Yeah. As a newsreader, is this one of the challenging names for you in your career?
Definitely not. I mean, like Mevlut Çavuşoğlu from, Prime Minister Turkey. That's probably a little bit more difficult. Yes. And I'm not going to lie with you. I did get Lionel Messi's name wrong once or twice. And the tennis, well, that's a whole new bag of tricks. But, I mean, he mounted Jenny. The footage is crystal clear.
Yep.
So, Mrs. Rubiales, I hope you're doing well in hospital and recovering and hydrating, but your son did the wrong thing. So carb up, honey, and give him a smoke.
Did we also see that the uncle has entered the chat as well?
No, hang on a
He's
second.
weighed in.
What's going on here?
Okay. This is like a Spanish drama. I'm obsessed with
This
it.
is muy caliente.
Absolutely. So they worked together for a few years and then had a falling out. And then the uncle left. And now he's come out and said that he's obsessed with power and luxury and money and that he needs to be re-educated with his relationship with women. And he's also made these allegations that he took some of the money from the Spanish Football Federation to fly to New York to have an affair, which is just like peak family drama.
Oh my god, this is fantastic. This isn't a news story. This is Succession. This is wonderful.
It is. There's a drama right there.
Wow. Izzy, what else you got? You're so deep in this story.
I'm obsessed with this story. It just keeps on going. Because it's like El Succession, it's like the Spanish Succession. It's awesome.
Yeah, the real Rubialeses of like Madrid. It feels like it's right around the corner.
I feel like Issy should maybe have my job as a journo and also keep your job because it's very, very important, but I've never felt more inferior. So thanks for that every Thursday night.
This week's third fear. And finally, the government will have a reprieve from the scrutiny of having their expenses under the microscope, at least until 2024. That's almost a full term without having any expenses looked at. We won't know how much they're expensing on travel, cabs, dinners, grange, accommodation in their own houses. We just won't know because the computer system run by the Independent Parliamentarians Expense Authority is down. Yes, there's this new expense management system that was brought in when Bronwyn Bishop took a private helicopter from Melbourne to Geelong to go to a Liberal Party fundraiser, a helicopter ride that cost $5,000. Now, can anyone guess how much this computer system, which for all intents and purposes is pretty much Excel, it's just got to be a variation on Excel. Guess how much this computer program has cost so far? Anyone?
Well, it costs like $130 a year to get all of like the Microsoft suite, like all of them. So I reckon, add a little bit of like corporate whatever grease on top of it. $150.
$1,000?
$150.
Oh, 100? No.
That's my guess.
Way more than that. Way more than that. It costs so far $69 million. It's overdue. This expense system is overdue. It's been been dragging their feet on it for like 5 years. And it's currently at $69 million. And because you wouldn't want to miss $5,000 of helicopter ride. You'd want to spend $70 million to really make sure people are spending the money correctly. Fearmongers.
Is PwC building this? What the fuck?
Well, it could be Stuart Roberts' friends. Who knows? Fearmongers, is $70 million a small price to pay to know where Bronwyn Bishop is at all times?
You just look to the skies, Dan. Look to the skies.
I'd like to hand this one to Izzy.
Izzy, what do you reckon?
I think the fact that they're blaming it on an IT error just baffles me, because it's like they're saying there are no digital natives in here that could possibly figure it out. It's just like some crazy computer thing that we've got no idea what's going on. I think, Dan, that you're totally right. They should just put it in a spreadsheet.
That's it. I mean, I spend $50 a month to use Xero. Like, just use Xero. I've seen the ads. The ads make it look like fun. The ads for Xero make it look like you're having a fiesta every time you're doing your bookkeeping, which isn't true, but still, it's $50 a month.
It is crazy, though, isn't it? It is crazy. But I mean, let's not forget, in the interests of being, both sides here, it was the Bronwyn Bishop Choppergate scandal that started this whole fiasco. But this is happening under the Labor Albanese government, and they're not coming up with some very good answers about it.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, if I was them, I would definitely say, probably can't do it till the next term.
I reckon Albo's just like. Oh, I reckon
that,
Albo's just like accidentally ordered all his Uber Eats, but forgot to change like the personal to the work, and he just like got all of his Uber Eats. He's like, I can't let people know that I've had Domino's 3 times this week.
Hey, I have had Marrickville pork roll 5 times a day.
Yeah, exactly.
For 10 years.
The shame of ordering Marrickville pork roll when you are the member of Graindler and you can get Marrickville pork roll by walking 10 minutes out of your door. Shame.
I
liked that he lined up for the pork roll. I liked it. I also think it was a total media stunt.
Of course. My problem, and look, I don't want to get too deep on this podcast. My issue with Marrickville pork roll is you have one and you're famished in an hour and a half. The bread has no GI to it. Delicious on the mouth. But you got to eat 3 of them to get through the afternoon.
That's why I do. It's great. That's why I look the way I do. I hit up Marrickville pork roll for breakfast. I go to Hong Ha Mascot for lunch. I go to Hong Ha Bondi.
This is how Albanese pork barrels. It's in a bun.
It's funny, all this talk about accountability and transparency comes as Richard Marles, Defence Minister, is being slammed for using an RAAF jet to the tune of about $3 million over the last few years.
Or
so
1/20th of a computer.
Dan, go to pull you up on your own podcast.
What's that? Go for it, Tash.
I said, I think it was 3.6 million, but I don't want to pull you up on your own podcast.
$3.6 million, whatever. $70 million, whatever.
It's bloody cheaper than 2 flights on Qantas. Who's with me? Okay, everybody.
Yeah.
Who wants to be Alan Joyce this week?
Yeah.
No,
honestly, still me. Are you kidding me? He's a rich fucker.
Yeah, I would.
I would. Whatever he gets paid to get yelled at, I'll take half. And take the same. Like, if people are like, there's no poor Alan Joyce ever in my life. Like, that man deserves to be up against the fucking wall.
Wow. And that's why Lewis no longer works for the national broadcaster. The only time I rarely get nervous meeting famous people, but I was with my friend Lucy Durack and we were seeing a show at a theatre. I think we're seeing Matilda at the Ilic in Sydney, and she knows everyone. And the manager of the theatre saw her and I walking down the aisle, and he was like, "Oh, come with me, come to the secret room. We're having a special opening." So he opened up this secret side passage. We went through, and there's this room full of extremely famous people, all sorts of famous people there. The person I got most nervous being introduced to was Alan Joyce. I was like, "Oh, you're so rich and can destroy my life."
Did you seriously get nervous meeting him, Dan?
I got nervous meeting Alan Joyce. Yeah, I mean,
you're probably the only person he's met who's shorter than him. I feel like if I met him, I'd pat him on the head, turn him upside down, and shake him for coins.
There's only one thing shorter than a leprechaun, and that's a troll.
I feel like his comms people did him really dirty when they did, the big song and dance about these record profits, and he did these photos where he was obviously like ecstatic because he just made all this money for his shareholders. And next to, on either side of him, they've got these 2 girls dressed up in these costumes, but they have these ginormous headpieces on, which just make them look so tall and him look exceedingly short. Like, he's like so short. He looks like the shortest king you've ever seen.
If I was Alan Joyce, I would carry a portable joist to stand on. I would be Alan. Where's Joyce and joist?
Every
So
time
from
I
normal
get
height.
every time I get on a plane, and I'm 6'3", whenever I get on a plane and my legs are up against my ears, and I'm like, who the fuck designs these planes? I'm like, they're all fucking designed to fit a Joyce. He's sitting there swinging his little legs around, wee fiddly-dee, taking his fucking millions. The rest of us.
I didn't agree to come on this podcast to be, berated for being short, because I myself am vertically challenged. And let me tell you, it's very, very difficult when you're walking down the chip aisle and you've got a pole vault to get the cheesels. It's tough. But I'm also not getting $20 million a year. So, he can have his shortness.
He can pay a tall person to lift him up. I'll do it. I'll do it for basically nothing.
Maybe that's your new job, Lewis. New job.
My new job. Alan Joyce Joist.
If you're listening to the free feed, you'll hear some ads. If you're on the Patreon feed, you'll hear us discuss Albo's interview with Ali Langdon on A Current Affair when we play It's Not a Sec. How do you get to hear the free version? Well, if you want an ad-free, sponsor-free version of the show, just sign up to the Patreon, patreon.com/irrational fear. You also get discount tickets to live shows as well as access to the Discord. All right, before we go...
Sorry to interrupt, Dan. You said it's not a sec.
Oh. When we play, it's... Hang on a sec. Thank you. Yes, that's very good. Because I'm dealing with It's Not a Race stuff at the moment. Here we go. Langdon on When We Play, Hang On a Sec, in just a sec. Okay, great. That was for Jacob to pick up. All right, before we go, let's play Hang On a Sec. Albo's launched the Voice referendum. It is going to be October 14. He went on ACA to do what could only be described as a very gentle victory lap. But Ali Langdon was not exactly, a sympathetic audience. I'm going to play a little bit of the clip that I watched the entire half hour of the ACA interview with Albo. And wow, it was, Albo handled himself very calmly, very respectfully, and spoke very clearly. And every question that came from Ali Langdon was like as if she didn't understand any of the words that were coming out of his mouth in the order that a normal English speaker would understand them. Here is a bit of that back and forth. If you have a joke or you want to say something, just say, hang on a sec, and I'll stop the tape. Hang on, I've got to actually put it in this section here. ACA. Yeah.
People have looked at this. They've come to a positive position. Every faith group.
But I'm not sure people who are undecided and who are no are people who simply haven't looked at it. I mean, my parents don't understand it. They've looked at it. Their group of friends have looked at it and don't understand it. The majority of people who write into us at A Current Affair, our office doesn't get it. That is a massive...
Hang on a sec. There is no one literate who watches A Current Affair. They do not know how to write to A Current Affair. Anyone who writes to A Current Affair, it is a series of cut out like newspaper clippings and like scratches on a board.
Can I hang on a sec to Lewis there and say that Ali Langdon is a friend of mine and a world-class journalist, and I thought that she did an exceptional job with that interview, because I personally, journalists don't talk about how they vote, and I am genuinely a swinging voter, but on this I want to be on the right side of history, and I'll be voting yes. But I do not think that the Labor government nor Anthony Albanese has done a good enough job of explaining exactly what this means. And voting no does not necessarily make you racist. I think that it may mean that you don't understand exactly what it means because our government has not explained exactly what it means.
Here we go. Lewis, did you want to add to that?
No, let's keep watching.
Well, it's just an advisory group. It's not more complicated than that. It's an advisory group on matters affecting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.
Hang on a sec?
Yeah, sure. That's the end of the clip.
Go for it, Tash.
When we say it's an advisory group, okay, Cool. How many people are on the advisory group? Yes, there are people from each state and territory. How are they elected? It's among First Nations people, but this is the first time we've heard about it being an advisory group. We don't know how concrete what they recommend. Does it then go through Parliament and a bill and the upper and lower and back in the lower house? We don't know. So don't try and simplify this when you've made it very complicated from the very beginning.
Well, this is right at the end of the 30 minutes, pretty much. This is like minute 20, 21. And he did spend 20 minutes explaining all of that. But it is, I think it's kind of...
Ali's parents don't understand it, Dan.
Yeah, I know.
And
Ali's parents don't understand it.
And if Ali's parents don't understand it, then who possibly could?
There will maybe people she works with. Hang on a sec. I'm just going to play the clip again and see.
Understand it. The majority of people who write into us at a current affair, our office doesn't get it. That is.
Did you hear that? The Channel 9 office doesn't understand it.
It's almost as if it's your job, if you work in the Channel 9 office, to read, the Uluru Statement and understand it.
Yeah, I
mean, that
would
require just doing the work, Issy. That would require a little bit of work.
I mean, I've got a copy of the Langdon report from February, and
it's called the Current Affair, Dan. It's not called the Langdon report just yet.
And it's all fairly laid out there. But I do think the Yes campaign's done a pretty abysmal job of selling Yes. I mean, they've given me a poster that won't even stick up, which is absolutely
for sure. But that's a very different thing. Like saying how you haven't communicated it well is different to like grilling him because her parents don't get it. That's irrelevant to an interview.
Or the Channel 9
Prime Minister. What a waste of time.
Oh, no, sorry. I was going to say, I think that this is planned and strategic. I mean, there's reasons behind a 28-day campaign and why that can be successful and why there isn't fatigue around that. So I think that even though we don't have clarity now, perhaps we will get it. And there's good reason why they haven't answered all these questions yet.
Yeah, I mean, there is fair enough reason to be skeptical. And it does feel like the Labor Party are trying to have it both ways, a little bit of like, it's going to be completely significant history making. Also, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And it is quite hard to hold the logic of those two things at the same time.
If you're trying to communicate to Channel 9 what the voice was, how would you do it?
It's 3 chairs, Dan, and you gotta watch it. You gotta watch it.
I would have gone something like, "Wow, it's just a rugby league team of Aboriginal people all complaining to the government. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's 30 people on a field saying you're not doing good enough."
But if it's so perfect, then why is it just for 80% of First Nations Australians that are on board with it?
80%. If you do any vote, and 80%, like if you were the Prime Minister and you won by 80%, you would be the most popular politician in the history of humankind, apart from Kim Jong-un. 80% is a fucking crushing victory.
I'm talking about 80% of 2% of the population. So
the 2%'s irrelevant. It's 80% that's the relevant part.
Yeah.
You don't want to listen to what the 20% of First Nations people have to say?
Oh, of course I do. But if 80% of anyone says something, that's not close to being close. That is an absolute majority by the biggest country mile in voting history. It's not even close to being close, Tash.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I think when we go with wider Australia, it's going to be a little bit closer than that.
Of course. I don't disagree with that, but I think it's really disingenuous to be, the Indigenous people don't know. Like, of course, there are more than one side, but it is not 50-50. It's not even the ballpark of 50-50.
No, that's a fair comment.
I think overall, the ACA interview was pretty good from Albo. Albo, took his time, laid it out, and did it quite well. Like if I was questioned the same way, I think I would be extremely frustrated. I'd be like Lewis levels of losing it if I was questioned the same way. That's why I can't A, be Prime Minister, or B, even dare to apply for the ABC chair.
Yeah. Also, Albo's probably had a lot more sleep than I've had recently, so he's doing really well.
Yeah,
He's the Prime Minister, mate, so probably not.
Well.
Lewis, have you managed to give your daughter a Qantas Club Lounge membership?
Well, look, she's 7 months old, so she's just taller than Alan Joyce, so she can probably bully him herself next time she bumps into him at Qantas.
That is it for Irrational Fear. Big thank you to Tash Exelby, Issy Phillips, and Lewis Hobba. Let's get our plugs underway. Tash, what would you like to plug? You plug in anything?
Well, I actually left the full-time field of journalism in February, so I started my own media consultancy, or relaunched XLB Media. Anyone out there needing media training or presentation training, or if you want to know about crisis management, and I'm not just talking about people who are going to say no to the voice, then give me a call.
Tash, can you teach people how to do Australian newsreader voice?
I don't know what you're talking about, mate.
Izzy, what are you plugging?
I'm plugging Follow Pedestrian on TikTok. I make lots of little fun TikToks, making the news fun, talking about all the good news stuff, like worms, like lots of worms.
Lewis, you're still doing live shows around the country. Oh my God, you're the busiest man in showbiz right now.
Yeah, I'm doing a tour at the moment. Yeah, the next show is at the Tivoli in Brisbane on the 14th of September, which is nearly sold out. So if you want to come along to that, hop along. Then we're going to Canberra on the 16th, Bendigo on the 21st, and the greatest city in the world, Newcastle, on the 23rd, which is also nearly sold out. So come along to that. And also, I do have another new podcast called Hobba and Hing's Silver Bullet, which is really fun also.
That is it for Irrational Fear. Big thanks to Road Mics, Australian Ethical, our Patreon supporters, Jacob Brown on the Teppanyaki timeline. Also, big thank you to Bronwyn Morgan for her voice in our sponsorship ad. Until next week, there's always something to be scared of. Goodbye. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. That was great. That's going to be really, really, really good.
Well, good. Issy, I want to meet you and become your friend. You too, Lewis.
Likewise. Where do you live, Tash?
Let's do it.
I'm in Melbourne. So yeah, but I come to Sydney often. So yes.
We should all get together. We should